Hi, it's a lovely Monday once again, and we are here to do some sports. Now, Black Star striker Asamoah Gyan is set to begin training with Legon Cities this week ahead of the start of the new season. The 34-year-old completed a transfer deadline day move to the Royals on a one-year deal. Gyan, who is the top goal scorer in Ghana's history with 51 goals, makes the return to Ghanaian top flight 7 years after leaving Liberty Professionals. The former Sunderland striker scored 10 goals in 16 games before he left Liberty in 2003 to embark on a career that has seen him go through a lot of places, spells in Italy, France, England, Turkey, China, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, still on the Ghana Premier League, and Hearts of Oak technical director Carlos Manuel Vaz Pinto has left the club just 8 days after his appointment was announced. It is unclear why he left the club unceremoniously back to his native country, Portugal. Local media reports suggest that Vaz Pinto had a disagreement with the board of directors over who serves as his assistant. He was not interested in working with coach Edward Ni Odum, who wanted him replaced. Vaz Pinto is said to have recommended club legends Amankwah Mreku and Lawrence Ajatete, but the board kicked against it. So we'll be doing some Premier League news after this with our Premier League experts with Sky Sports, Blake Walton. Blake, how are you?
Hi, yeah, not too bad. How are you?
I'm great over here. So now let's start with the big lineup in the weekend, and that was Manchester United against Arsenal. Now, United still having problems at home. We've heard what Roy Keane had to say. Ian Wright also complaining about leadership in the team. Everybody's saying that questions are being raised about the manager. Is it time we put the axe on him?
Well, certainly leading in with the strong question there. Yeah, certainly, as you said, it was the 100th game in charge for Ollie, but it was no happy returns. The side looked pretty sort of tepid, lacking in any real creative spark, considering how many sort of midfielders and creative players they've got. And you just get the sense at the moment that Manchester United are perhaps kind of lost a little bit of direction. When he first came in, it was very much Ollie at the wheel, and there seemed to be a clear plan. But I don't think he knows at the moment his best midfield. He tried to play a diamond, and yeah, things aren't looking great. Obviously, Sky Sports Monday Night Football, we have Mauricio Pochettino on tonight, and with him still out of a job as well, it kind of, puts a spectre around Old Trafford and the future of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Well, as you said about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not finding the way to put in his midfield. Now, he has quality in the midfield. We have seen so much talent in Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba. Individually, we know the players are fantastic. But what can the manager, what is he not being able to do to put them in their right positions to get the best out of them?
I think obviously when he first came in, he had an awful lot of issues to deal with, and there's a lot of sympathy. Obviously, the Paul Pogba situation and his agent saying, Paul wants to leave, and he seemed to kind of quell that storm. And I think it's just perhaps, he's bought players, and they don't seem to have any sort of transfer strategy as well. And I think as much of that is his fault, having the players, and that I think also you have to look at the boardroom and think about the likes of Woodward and who he's bringing in. Perhaps Woodward's telling Ole more, we're buying this player and that, as opposed to Ole sort of saying, no, I don't want this player, I want this player. So is it a question of Ole having a choice in the transfer market, or is he just basically being told who they're getting? If he does go, I think obviously questions would have to be raised at boardroom level with Edward Woodward and the transfer policy, and you'd have to have a manager, perhaps maybe Pochettino, or someone who's a little bit stronger, who's been around the block and have the experience to actually say, no, I want this player, no, I don't want this player, get me this player, don't get me this player.
Well, it'll be interesting to see Pochettino be the one to make decisions, because we know a stronger character in Jose Mourinho has been there and also had problems with Ed Woodward. So how is Pochettino, who was being replaced by Jose Mourinho, going to be the one to solve the problems of Man United?
I think that's a great question, and I think obviously there has to be a point where, and I think a lot of Manchester United fans are not just the real ones that actually appreciate the situation. They're not just criticising Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They're criticising the board as well. As I said, all throughout the summer, Jadon Sancho was supposedly the #1 target. They failed to get Jadon Sancho. They got Donny van der Beek, who doesn't seem to fit into any sort of system. So I do think, obviously, as you said, if there is a change of manager, fine. Someone who's perhaps more experienced and can manage the likes of the egos and the big players. But also there needs to be a long hard look at the boardroom and the likes of Woodward as well.
Fantastic. Now let's move on to Chelsea. Now, Lampard, we've seen him come in and his team playing some good attacking football. The problem has been with the defense. Another clean sheet, 2 consecutive clean sheets as we might see in the Premier League. Do we think he's finding the balance with his defense right now?
Yeah, I'd also like to say I think the key thing to the win was all of Chelsea's big summer signings all started for the first time. They had the worst defence of all the sides in the top half of the table last season, conceding 54 goals. And I think really the signing of Mendy, in place of Kepa, it has been brilliant. That sort of reliability at the back is really shone through. And I think Thiago Silva, despite having a shaky start, he's really starting to grow into the Premier League as well. So you've got those 2 guys that have come in, and I think shout out to Kurt Zouma as well, who was also on the score sheet against Burnley. He's really stepped up and relished the additional competition for places. And as you said, the balance is looking great. You've also got obviously Hakim Ziyech. He's really beginning to impress me as well.
Right. Okay, so now let's do Liverpool. And Liverpool, we've seen last season when they were about to win the league, we saw them grinding results. They seem to have that same attitude, even with them not having Van Dijk, Fabinho being out, with Nathan Phillips coming in and doing fantastically well. Are they the champions going to be title contenders this season as well?
Most definitely, and you hit the nail on the head right there. Whatever's going on with Liverpool, with the injuries, and Virgil van Dijk out, and that, and they're not playing well. No one's kind of can dispute that. They're still grinding out results, as you said, and digging deep. And it's the second consecutive Premier League game that they've had to come from behind. Sheffield United and then West Ham United at the weekend. They're finding players to step up, as you said, in difficult situations. Nat Phillips was brilliant. Even Xherdan Shaqiri, who's a guy who was on his way out of Anfield, has come in from the cold and delivered. So, that is a mark of a true side, a quality side, and a mark of a champion side. And, despite all these problems, who's top of the league? Liverpool.
Right. So now let's move to another title challenges, and Manchester City keep up the pace with a slim win against Sheffield United. Do you think Pep Guardiola has an edge this season as well?
Look, City aren't going to be a poor side just overnight. They have got an aging side, and they really did struggle to replace Vincent Kompany. I think now, obviously, that the signing of Ruben Dias has been brilliant. He's come in, he's made 6 consecutive starts, which is something that no City centre-back was able to achieve last year. I think Nathan Ake, I'm a big fan of Nathan Ake. He's done brilliantly. And, of course, you've got Almut Laporte back, and you can't really underestimate how big a miss he was last season.
Right.
So I think that they're grinding out results, like you said. They were put under pressure at Sheffield United, and Sheffield United will always give you a game. But I think, they're more of a work in progress than Liverpool. And I think, that's the thing. They still need to have a bit of a transition period. And it's interesting because Pep Guardiola, looking at his career, he's never really been at a side where he's had to rebuild. So he's into his last year of his contract. If he stays, it's going to be an interesting period.
Right. So now Everton started a fantastic season. Everybody was saying that is Everton going to win the league. Now 2 consecutive losses, and they're playing Manchester United next. What's the fate of Carlo Ancelotti's side?
Well, this is what happens. You have a good start, and obviously expectations are automatically raised. And I think obviously the 2 defeats basically it makes it seem like worse than they actually are. They've had a fantastic start, but you've got to think, the last 2 games they've been without some really key players. Richarlison, particularly, after being sent off against Liverpool, he's been a big miss alongside James Rodriguez. And then you've got the 2 fullbacks, Lucas Digne and Seamus Coleman. So, they struggled to create any meaningful chances at Newcastle, and Calvert-Lewin was far too, isolated. I think it does basically. We've been obviously had rumours here about Isco being linked to Goodson Park, and I think really the game against Newcastle shows, the lacking in limitations, that they have, still in the final third. Isco would be a great signing, and he must be looking at how James Rodriguez is coming with former manager Carlo Ancelotti and hit the ground running. And I wouldn't be surprised if if Everton are still flying high, doing well in January, the Spaniard could move to Merseyside,
Right.
or failing that this summer.
Finally, now there's a new lockdown in the UK. Is that going to affect the Premier League?
Everything's very fluid at the moment, but I would pretty much say no. The difference is, obviously, the leagues below, I think, would be in jeopardy because they don't have the stringent, protocol procedures and the testing that the Premier League has. The Premier League is very much in a bubble of its own with the stringent testing, the mandatory testing. And I think as well, you guys in Ghana, you have great sunshine and lovely weather. Here in Britain, we don't have anything like that. It's all grey and overcast, and football in particular league is something that brings a lot of distractions and lots of enjoyment to people, and brings a little bit of sunshine, which we don't have much of. So I think from a mental health point of view, the government are very keen on keeping football and particularly the Premier League going as soon as possible, as much as possible, and not kind of making any sort of drastic changes to that anytime soon.
Fantastic, Blake Bolton, and we would like to have you again once again for the Liverpool and City game. We promise you that?
Hey, yeah, if you'll have me, yeah, definitely.
Great, thank you very much. And that's Blake Bolton of Sky Sports. He gave us all the up-to-date and everything in the Premier League tonight. So now we are looking up also to look at the games where Everton's poor run and form, the Premier League is going on. We saw all the results, and that was it, all that happened in the Premier League for the weekend. So now that's all for MX Breaks on Sports. I am Selwyn Saki. Do stay tuned.